Kenny Monsch was born on January 26, 1992 in Honduras. Her mother, Maria, was only 15 years old when she gave birth. In April 1993, when Kenny was just over a year old, Maria left Honduras for the United States. She was only 16 years old then and, in fact, she was still a child herself. For this reason, she had to move to a completely new country alone. In 1994, Maria met a man named Tony Lee. They fell in love, got married and had 2 children, Kimberly and Anthony. In 2004, when Kenny was 12 years old, she moved to the United States. For what reason her move to her mother was postponed for such a long time is unknown. Kenny spoke very little English when she first arrived, but she picked up the language pretty quickly. To Maria's delight, Tony got along well with Kenny and treated her like his own daughter. Kenny immediately became close to her half-siblings, especially Kim. They immediately became best friends. Everything was perfect for her. They lived in Aurora, Colorado, near Denver. As of 2019, Aurora has a population of 380,000. It is the 3rd largest city in Colorado. Having spent her childhood in Honduras, a country where poverty is widespread, Kenny never took anything for granted and was very hardworking. She excelled in her studies at Cherry Creek High School. After graduating, she began attending a community college in Denver, where she studied broadcasting. By this time, she had already moved out of the family home and was living in a rented apartment with her boyfriend, Louis Easton. Kenny was not only very smart, but also very kind and caring. She made friends easily due to her warm, cheerful, and versatile nature. She led an active and social life, and she also enjoyed relaxing at home with her family. But like any teenager, Kenny had her negative behavior. Kenny and his friends used fake IDs to enter bars and clubs in downtown Denver. On March 31, 2011, Kenny and his friends booked a table at one of the lounge bars in downtown Denver. That night, the whole group had fun, and no one noticed how at one point Kenny got up from the table and went to the restroom. She left her purse and phone on the table. After that, for an unknown reason, Kenny left the club. Perhaps she wanted to get some fresh air. Or the girl could have been taken out of the club because she was too drunk. In any case, she ended up on the street alone, without her purse, keys, and phone, which were left lying on the table inside the club. After a while, her friends started looking for her in the club, but later they probably thought that she had gone home and did not attach any special significance to her absence. The next morning, April 1st, Kenny and Louis's boyfriend became worried when he realized that Kenny had not returned home that night. There were no calls or messages from her on his phone. And this was strange, because she always told him if she had any plans. Having sounded the alarm, Louis called Kenny's sister and Kim and asked if she knew where Kenny was. Kim said no. He told her that she needed to talk to her parents immediately. Maybe they knew where she was. Kim called her parents and told them that Kenny had not returned home that night. Tony and Maria immediately rushed home from work. They called everyone who might have been with Kenny, but all was in vain. They met with 2 friends with whom Kenny had been that night. Kenny's parents asked the girls questions about what had happened at stake that evening. To Tony and Maria's horror, the girls admitted that they had used a fake ID to get into the nightclub. The last time they saw Kenny was just after midnight, and they do not know what happened to her after that. The girls also took Kenny's purse with her phone, keys, and wallet inside, which, as they explained, she left on a table in the club. This was strange, because it was unlikely that Kenny would go somewhere without a phone and personal belongings. When examining Kenny's phone, the last message was from a guy named Travis, which read, "Hi, this is Travis. The guy who gave me a ride yourself last night, a white and creepy van. Did you get home okay?" A guy named Travis might know where Kenny was, but after calling the number several times, they never got an answer. It was decided to file a missing persons report for Kenny, but when Tony explained the situation, the officer didn't take it seriously, telling him that she was probably out and about because she was young and would show up soon. The next day, Saturday, April 2nd, Travis, whom Tony had been trying to contact, called back in secret. He told Tony an elaborate story about seeing Kenny outside. a drunken club, at about 2:30 in the morning. He asked her if she needed help, and she said yes, she needed to get to her car, which was parked outside another club. Travis agreed and decided to give Kenny a ride to her car. There were some obvious inconsistencies in this story from Kenny's friends, who said that she had left her keys, purse, and phone on a table at the club. Then, according to Travis, they drove to the club but couldn't find her car. So Travis offered to give her a ride home. She gave him the address and he said it was very close to Picarna, where he worked. He drove in that direction, but then Kenny said she wanted to buy cigarettes, so they stopped at a gas station, but it was closed. Kenny then saw an Asian man standing there smoking. Kenny walked up to him and asked for a cigarette. They smoked and talked to each other, and then left together. That was the last time I saw her, Travis said. Tony was rather suspicious of Travis's dubious story, but thanked him for the information. He then called the police, saying that he had spoken to a man named Travis, who had told him that Kenny had left with some guy she had met at a gas station in the middle of the night. He begged them to take a missing person report, but they also refused to take a report, explaining that 72 hours had to pass since she disappeared. Tony called Travis again and asked him to go over the details again, in case he had missed something. Travis asked Tony to meet him at the gas station where he had last seen Kenny. Tony agreed, saying that he would be there soon, and after hanging up, Tony picked up his 9mm pistol. Maria saw this and told him not to do anything stupid, but Tony was adamant. He was going to meet Travis at the gas station. The police have refused to help us, and I will have to take matters into my own hands, Tony replied. As soon as Tony left the house, Maria called the police, telling them where Tony was going, that he had a gun with him. Tony had a concealed weapons permit, by the way. They agreed to send an officer to the gas station where Tony and Travis planned to meet, in case the situation got out of hand. When Tony arrived at the gas station, the police officer was already there with Travis and his friend. He told again the same story that Tony had heard on the phone. Tony looked at Travis carefully while he spoke. He was visibly nervous, and his story seemed too memorized. Tony could not imagine Kenya just walking with some man she had met at a gas station in the middle of the night. The police officer also thought that his story sounded strange. He asked Tony to leave him and Travis alone, and asked him a few more questions. While the officer was talking to Travis, Tony walked up to Travis's van and was hit with a strong odor from the Belbatel. He pulled the officer aside and told him about the smell. The officer walked up to the van and smelled the same thing, a strong chemical odor. The cop at the gas station saved Travis, asking if he could look inside his van. Travis allowed him to. The back of the vehicle was suspiciously clean, and the floor had new carpeting, while the front of the van, around the driver and passenger seats, was a complete mess. There were food wrappers and other trash strewn about. The officer also found this odd, but it was not enough to detain Travis. After 72 hours, on Monday, April 4th, an investigation into her disappearance was launched. Kenny's family and friends spent the time searching, handing out flyers with her photo and searching everywhere they could. On April 5th, a detective turned over surveillance footage to the owner of the Picarna and cafe where Travis worked. The footage was taken on April 1st. On April 6th, Travis was taken to the police station. He repeated the story he told Tony and the police officer when they met at the gas station on April 2nd. After leaving the gas station, around 3 a.m., he said he went home to see his girlfriend, Carrie. However, when detectives reviewed Travis's phone records, they found that he was not near Carrie's house at the time. Picarn owner Monica said she walked into the Picarn on the morning of April 2nd and found that the CCTV cameras had been turned off. She checked the footage, and the last thing on camera before the cameras were turned off was Travis, alone in the Picarn around April 1st, 1931. He was wearing long latex cleaning gloves. Detectives reviewed the footage before the cameras were turned off. It showed Travis rolling a cart with a large white refrigerator on top into a freezer at the Picarn. He was next seen on camera carrying a rug into the Picarn. He then returned to his van to get a bottle of bleach. The CCTV cameras were then turned off. Detectives interviewed other employees working near the picarn. One witness recalled seeing two men behind the picarn burning something in a barrel on the evening of April 1st. A white van was parked nearby. Another witness saw Travis cleaning out a large white cooler in the back of his van, which was parked at an emergency exit in Picarna. When Monica asked why he turned off the cameras, he said he turned off the cameras because he was going to change his clothes. She also noticed a cut on his arm, which he said was the result of an attack on him and an unknown person. Despite the growing suspicion against him, Travis, for some unknown reason, decided to leave the state and headed to Texas. Detectives continued to closely examine every detail of Travis's story, and the fact that he abruptly left for a neighboring state added something to his suspicions. On May 4th, after leaving Denver in a friend's car, Travis was arrested in Austin, Texas, on suspicion of auto theft. On June 30th, Travis was extradited back to Colorado, but his friend dropped the auto theft charges and he was released. After returning from Colorado, Travis moved to his hometown of Fort Collins. While investigators were trying to find evidence against Travis, a woman was brutally attacked in the Fort Collins area. Lydia Tillman, 30, was returning home on the evening of July 4th when she was attacked on her doorstep. An unknown assailant brutally beat her in her own home. He hit her so hard that he broke her jaw. He strangled her and left her for dead, pouring bleach on her body and the entire apartment. Then he set it on fire. Somehow, Lydia managed to jump out of a second-story window. An ambulance had just arrived at the scene. Lydia had suffered a stroke and was in a coma for more than 5 weeks. When her father, Willie Tillman, was hospitalized, he did not even recognize that she was his daughter. Yulitza was so swollen that he could only recognize her by the tattoo on her leg. DNA from under Lydia's fingernails was tested and a match was found. It was Travis Forbes. He was arrested on July 10th, walking home late at night with another woman, possibly another victim. Travis decided to tell the story in exchange for not being charged with a sex crime. He said that he saw Kenny walking around downtown Denver that night. He claimed that she was drunk and so he offered to give her a ride home. When she got into the van, she fell asleep. He took advantage of this, tried to rape her. When Kenny came to consciousness, I realized what was happening. She began to hit him. Then he strangled her. He left her body in the back of his van for a day, then hid her body in a cooler, which he then left in a freezer in Picarn. Travis stripped Kenny of his clothes and burned them in his Picarn barrel, then buried Kenny's body under a small grove of trees in Kenienberg, about 40 miles outside of Denver. He later showed police the site. Travis also confessed to attacking Lydia. He pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. He received an additional 48 years for the attempted murder of Lydia Tillman. On October 5, 2011, Travis's girlfriend, Carrie, was arrested on suspicion of attempting to influence an armed person. Carrie told detectives that Travis asked her to lie about where he was that night, and she did so without questioning him. On September 14, 2012, she was sentenced to 60 years in prison and 4 years probation. In court, Travis claimed that he was completely remorseful and repeatedly stated that he did not intend to kill Kenny. But this was a lie, because after Kenny, he tried to do the same thing again with Lydia Tillman. And if he had not been caught and sentenced to life without parole, there is no doubt that he would have continued to attack other women.